Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ignite podcast. This is the third episode. We're very excited. I'm very excited about the guests that we have today. As usual, the purpose of this podcast is to ignite something in your heart, to light up a flame in your heart, to spur you in a direction you're hoping to go to. And I do hope that you will be inspired today. I'll let my guest introduce herself. Although we've worked on a couple, when I worked in the media with her, we worked on a couple of stories, and she always gave such wonderful advice. And I hope that today she will also give us some good word and some good advice. Yeah.
Shali, thank you so much for having me. My name is Ndenya Masharia. I am an image consultant and a trainer. I also am passionate about young people. And so that's the reason I'm here. And thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Today's word is dating. Uh, Dating is defined as the stage of romantic relationship in which two individuals engage in an activity together, most often with the intention of evaluating each other's sustainability as partner in a future intimate relationship. Now, we're going to look at dating in a different type of angle. Most of the times when people look at dating, they look at it from the point of view dating when you're 20, in your 20s. But today I want to look at dating from the point of view of dating when you're in your late 30s or in your 40s. We want to look at what does that entail? Is it different? What are the different factors that come into play, and how can you be successful in dating even in your late 30s? So to begin with, I would just I also am really looking forward to listening to the advice that Denya has to give us, because I'm also in my late 30s, and so I would like to know what are some of the mistakes that I'm making, or what are some of the steps that I can take. And just to begin with, I just want to ask Denya, what are some of the mistakes, would you say, that you see women and men in older ages doing when it comes to dating?
So maybe first of all, I start by saying that I got married when I was a little older. And so I have had the experience of dating in my 20s and then dating in my 30s and then beginning to think that the clock is ticking too fast. And so I think some of the challenges, I will say that dating now is very different from dating then. Partly because the physical interactions have been limited by now what we call social media and the social expression. And so it's not like it used to be in the past. However, when it comes to the dating scene, we'll talk about, especially even like where we live, that the expectations have changed. What people wanted in the past is very different from what people seem to want now. And then I also think that a lot of other things came that replaced what a relationship would bring to the table. So the ability to have, say, for example, a cleaner, a cook, took away some of the original format of why people were dating. Most people would date in order to get married, have children, continue their generation and grow the society. Now the variables have changed. People are doing it for all sorts of different reasons. And so some of those pose challenges for dating in the current present day scene. So what are some of the challenges? I think one of them is, like I've said, the changing the definition of what the dating scene looks like. And then other ones have to do with, I feel like the older people get, the more lazy or relaxed they become in the dating scene. You've done it, been there, done that. You're like, you know what, I'm going to stay in my house. I don't feel anything. Let it just stay. Yet, the older you are, especially for women, the more you have to put in some extra work.
In fact, there's something interesting I read the other day, or I had someone saying, they're saying that when you're in your 20s, you have all these also expectations about what your partner should be. You have this long list that he should be tall, he
Right.
should have this money, he should
Dark,
do what.
handsome, rich.
And then when you reach your 30s, it changes.
Right.
But as you go to your 40s, you just say, can he just be alive? You know,
Right.
like, is he like, all your list has completely changed? You know,
Right.
like you're no longer maybe as how do I say, as optimistic
Well-
as you were when you're in your 20s. And I think that comes from being around also people who've been married. So you don't have the stars that you had in your younger years, because you've seen Cinderella and you've seen all these wonderful things about marriage, which is true. Marriage is wonderful. But now you've seen your friends who are married go through tough tough trials, or you have friends who are even divorced or are separated, and so you begin to look at a relationship with a different lens. And from my perspective, I think that one of the challenges I think you face when you're older is, how do you be optimistic about love and at the same time be a realist?
So I think first of all, let's talk about when we were in the 20s. There is all this. You imagine that there's
Yeah.
a great, wonderful, long life ahead of you.
Okay.
I don't think we put into play the fact that life is moving. Life
Yeah.
is not stationary. And so in your 20s, you'll find that most girls don't want to date their classmates or campus
That's
mates
true.
because they are campus mates. Very few end up with their childhood sweetheart.
Yeah.
The rest want some older, more mature,
Uh,
more this, that, the other. Now, when you move into your 30s, your campus mates are gone.
yeah.
Most of them are married, actually. And the ones who are not are probably now doing round number 2. So the dynamics of that has changed.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I feel like what happens when you now get into your 30s, that's where the whole experience of feeling like life has passed you by begins to happen. So in that time frame, first of all, you've been to all the weddings.
Okay.
You're not just your classmates, then it's your nieces and nephews and your cousins. It ends up being they're going younger, and we'd say maybe advantage that guys can marry younger,
Oh, I
way younger,
yes, they
as
can. Yeah.
opposed to girls who then the list of people becomes less and
It's
less,
less.
in my perspective.
Okay. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not possible to find really good people, or that it's not possible to have a wonderful, exciting dating experience when you're older. So for me, the advice would be, one, people have to show up. I find that when people are in their
Yes,
in their
that's true.
30s, this is the scenario I picture. You've entered your house at 7:30. You've removed your face, your hair, your makeup, all the things. You've sat and you're watching your favorite series, and then the guy calls you and he's like, "Hey, how are you? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "I'm not leaving my house. I'm not coming out. You come." And that time he's excited. He wants to be out. He wants to do stuff. Now you're like, you're tired. You've been there, done that. You don't think it. You start asking yourself, is it worth the effort? As a result,
Okay.
if you ask me, 90% of the women will end up staying at home and missing out on that opportunity. And then what will happen? That guy will call somebody else. So maybe you are number 1 to be called. He'll call number 2. Number 2 will be like, "Hey, I'm loose. You know what? Hey, where are you? Don't even pick me. I'll take a boda. I'll take a cab. I'll come." What ends up happening? That person may not end up with the guy who called, but may end up with his friend who was there, may end up with the other opportunities that are presented in that one opportunity. And so for me, showing up is a very big one. I say that it's important to show up. Even if you feel tired, lazy, just wear your hair again, just put your face back on. Or, find a quick way to put yourself together to wake up and get to the plot, go to the plot, because you'd never know what opportunity lies there for you. And then I think that if we,
Can I just take you back
Yeah.
to the being available? And what does being available mean? Does it mean just showing up for the date? Because I do see that a lot of times as women, maybe even get older, they stop taking care of themselves. Not all,
Right.
but sometimes you even tap out on you're like, what's the point of making all the effort? Or you almost feel like your youth is going, or you're drying out, and so you don't make as much effort. What does showing up entail?
I think showing up entails dressing up as well. I think that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And so looking your best is critical. I also say that men are visual. So every time if they'll see you first and decide that they like you based on what they see. In the statistics of it is they say 55% people make a judgment about you 55% based on how you look. Then 38% is the tone of your voice, and 7% is how clever you are, how many degrees you have, what schools you went to. That's from an image perspective. And so it's important to look the part. I think that the showing up is more the determining in your heart that if you like this person, or if you're interested in this person, that you will leave your comfort zone and make yourself available and present. I find girls are like, oh no, he has to come pick me up. Oh no, he has to, and I'm like, no. The world has changed. It's no longer when the knight would ride up to your home, and maybe for me that's the big expectation,
Okay, yeah,
that
it
he'll,
is.
in a white horse, in this case a white Range Rover,
Yeah.
knock at your door, whisk you off your feet, and 3 months later you're
Yeah.
going to be heading to the altar, and all your friends will be jealous. No, it doesn't work like that. The world has changed. People have different things that they're doing. It may be more convenient for you to take a cab than it will be for him to drive all the way across town to come and pick you up. And so for me, that's the showing up. And then the dressing up is best foot forward. Like I said, it may not be him, but at that gathering, if it's out in the town, you never know who else you may bump into that may present a different opportunity. And so for me, I think being open is another one, that you're open to what is available for you, because sometimes they're hidden. The gems are hidden in what you don't expect. Because we have this picture of the tall, dark, handsome, and whatever it is, you may refuse the date with this guy because of those factors. And for me, I think also that list, making sure that your list is a real list. That's the question you are asking. Because
Yes,
some of
it's
the
about
lists
being
that we
realistic.
make
Yeah.
are completely unrealistic. So we talk about, you want to date a 10 out of 10, but you are 4. So the question would be, why would the 10 come to date you and not look for a 10?
And those are tough conversations to have with yourself.
Right? And so for me, I think there's that part where we, especially as women, have to put in the extra effort to be able to then match up. Because if the guy can get a supermodel, then what? And then you're feeling hot and you're playing hard to get. That makes it even 10 times harder. So he'll end up with the one who's, the supermodel may be the one who's easy, by the way, who's like, here's my phone number. And that's another thing. People will ask people for their phone numbers. And I don't know why we're afraid of society. Like I said, society has changed. So nowadays you can't trust everybody. But you may want to go with your gut feeling. If this person is, you've met them in a social circle that you are able to know where they are coming from, who they are, because I think people hang out in society, in social groups, so you can do your what do we call it, background check, to see that this person is legit, and if they are, then you can then pursue. That's another big thing, the background check. Today's world is, like I said,
Yeah,
they are
dodgy people.
they're dodgy people. They're dodgy people, and there are bad things happening to people. However, that's not your story. So you need to, you know what? If this person checks the boxes,
Give it a
they may
chance.
not have some of the things that you think you want. And I'll tell you, the older you get, some of those things fall off naturally. The tall, dark, handsome may be the person who treats you really badly, while the short and whatever else may be the one who treats you well and who's meant to bring out the best version of you. And so for me, I think sometimes the movies played a big role in making us have these dreams that were not realistic. The series play an even bigger role in creating personas or avatars that are not real, that don't even exist, that you want this person to have all these things, yet you don't. And so I think once you come into the dating space, other than showing up and being open, it's being realistic. It's saying, the qualities that I want is someone who will treat me well, someone who will value who I am and bring out the best in me, and someone that I can talk to and spend life together with. Because then we have the other pictures. You have the picture perfect people who never have any conversation,
That's true.
are just on a mundane, everyday activities of just getting by. And one day you wonder, why did those two leave each other? Or why did, that marriage end, or that experience not go through? Because it was built on the wrong foundation. And so I think friendship is a key thing. Friendship, that a person you can be yourself with. I say, like for me, if you can take your wig out and you're comfortable and that person is comfortable with you, then you know what, you may have found a keeper, as opposed to the ones who want to see you in your dolled up self the entire time.
All the time, yeah. Because there's some people who are like that.
Right.
And how, okay, I think you've mentioned some things about like how different dating in your 20s and how different it is when
There's the
when
dating
you're
in your
older.
20s, and then there's also dating in the 90s, as opposed to dating now, because the 20-year-old
Okay.
dating now is very different than when we were 20 years old. What they're going through and experiencing now
It's very
is
different.
they're having multiple relationships or engagements, some on social media, some in the living environment that they live in, because it's very different. Like a lot of us in our back in the day stayed in our parents' home a lot longer
Okay.
than today's world, where the 20-year-old will move out and find a kwetu, a savo to live in, and
You never come back, maybe.
right, and begin that life of independence at a younger age, as opposed to the others who are waiting to get married from their parents' home, which was our time.
Is it a good thing? The way it has changed, can it be a challenge for someone who is a bit older? Or is it that they will find people also from the same
And the people
era
are
as
there.
them?
The
Yeah.
people are there. I think life is challenging, and so it depends on how you decide to go with it and roll with the punches. But I think that it's possible to then roll with the punches. The other thing I want to mention here is that we must also begin to speak life and speak positive things. I find that when people get older, they start being negative and brooding with the naysayers, and so you hear the conversations for, oh, they're no good men,
Those
oh,
are common.
this city is full of XYZ,
Uh,
or and then everyone has a list of stories. And I'm usually like, for the list of stories, there's also a list of success stories. It's like even when you hear, oh, this person has 95% chance of getting well, means that there's 5% chance that they can. And so as opposed to focusing on the negative, which may seem like it's overwhelming, focus on the positive. You can be that one outlier who finds a really nice guy who's single, has no kids, has no baggage, has no whatever it is. And not that the others are bad, but you can find your ideal among that same demographic or same society that people are saying those people don't exist. I, in my experience, went through we used to say, oh, they're no good men, they're not this, they're not that. And one day I remember just listening to, I can't remember what I was listening to, and it was about that the power of life and death is in your tongue, and beginning to speak life. And I made a decision that I was going to, first of all, acknowledge that I wanted to get married, acknowledge that I wanted to be in a steady, wonderful relationship. And I began to describe what that relationship was. And I began to say that that's what I'm going to get. I started speaking it. And the more I spoke it, people would be like, yeah, let's wait, we'll see. Oh, I mean, and then also the people will also play on your past or your past experiences, like, please. But for me, my confession became my reality.
because there is people find comfort in like negative. There's something so comforting. It's very evil, but I think that you find comfort in people to complain with.
Of course.
At the same time, when you
Misery loves company.
when you go home and you're on yourself, you're like, oh, I want this, I want this.
Right.
But then when you're with your friends or with other people, you're like, oh, this institution is dead, it doesn't
Right,
work, and you're
right,
speaking so much
right.
negativity. So I like the
And
way
even
you're
at the
saying that.
weddings, you have the aunties will ask you when is yours, and you don't have a good answer, and or they'll say you're next, and you're like, oh no, kindly they're found in Nakumat, you know. So for me, I'm like, begin to have that positive confession for when the aunties ask you when is yours. No, you're next. You're like, yeah, I'm next. I am next.
So you should align your words and your state of mind with whatever goal it is you're hoping to
Correct.
to
Actually,
come.
the example of holiness I like to say is that what you think, what you say, and what you do are the same.
What you think, what you say, and what you do
Correct.
are the
So if you're
same, yeah?
thinking relationship leading to marriage, then your actions should your words should be relationship leading to marriage, and so should your actions. They should be relationship leading to marriage. So you can't then go back to the living a life for you're just going to hang out with people, because I think the older you get, then you begin to sift a lot faster.
No, that's true.
So stop having people in the parking lot who are taking up parking space, as
okay.
opposed to the people you're looking for. So if for example, you want to get married and you're in a relationship that you know is not going to lead to marriage, get out of that relationship. And this is the hardest part people don't want to talk about or hear. But this is the part you're like, you know what? You need to walk away. If you know for a fact it's not healthy, it's not good for you, it's not going where you want it to go, take
Walk
the
away.
courage to walk out and start afresh. Because people like to muse in that you're in a semi sort of kind of something, and it oftentimes is with
Blocks you.
the wrong person,
Uh-huh.
and it's taking away from you. And so what happens when the right guy rolls around your apartment, the parking lot is full. So he can't park his car because you're already in some, it's complicated, opaque, whatever it is. So for me, it's make that decision. And it's a hard decision, but make it. And then that way now you're free. Then you can now begin the steps towards that, what it is that you're looking towards
So
having.
some of the key points you said, number one is that you have to be, you first have to have the intention.
Right.
Number two, you have to be available.
Show up.
Available meaning
Yes.
emotionally,
Right.
physically,
Right.
and mentally available to be seen.
Right.
And then also look your best. And I think that's part of being available.
Right.
And number three, let your words and your
Thoughts and your
thoughts and
actions
everything
align.
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 So those are aligned.
Yeah.
And
And then speak life. Speak positive. Make sure that you're always, and if you have people around you who are negative, who say that those things don't work and don't exist, you may want to also cut ties with them for the season that you're trying to find that relationship or that experience that you want. Because you keep hanging out those people, it's easier for them to wear you out than it is for you to change their way of thinking or their thought process or their patterns. Yeah.
I also like the way you say that you should create room for what you have, because a lot of times we have such a lack mentality. We'd rather stay with something that is not working,
Right.
and think that in staying in that is not lacking, we'll be able to attract what we want. And I
Right.
think that, like you're saying, if you are in a situation which is just not working, it's
Right.
not gonna go anywhere.
Right.
As long as you stay there, then you block whatever blessing or the other person. And I think it also
Correct.
there's that stigma of being single.
Alone, and I think that society has created that. Society has created some negative things when it comes to the single world that almost make it seem like it's a really bad thing, almost the plague. But I think
Yeah.
COVID helped with that, because then everyone was able to retreat to their own selves and realize that, you know what, hey, it is a state of being. However, I feel like you shouldn't let society or anyone for that matter define you based on your singleness. Because we don't go to define the other people based on their marriedness or their other status.
Okay, that's true.
We don't. We don't come and say, oh, you are, you know, you, but the single people bear the brunt of it. Why? Because it's an expectation that society has placed on people. I do still say in the same vein that man was not meant to be alone.
Okay.
And so there's another narrative for
Okay.
I must, single is a state of being, and I can remain in this state of being. And so you never even strive towards wanting a relationship because you've convinced yourself that it's okay to be single.
And can we clarify also the difference? Because you can be in a relationship and you can be married and you can be alone.
Yes, but now we're talking about, and for me, I'll say this: that too is an experience. That being in a marriage, and I tell people also, it's easier for people who are divorced to get married a second time than it is for a single person to get married for the first time. So for me, I say it's an experience, and that's what dating does. Dating may also show you what you don't want. So people sometimes take it like, oh, it didn't work out, but that in it not working out was the reason you know what not to do in the future going forward. You know, I don't want that. It's easier then to identify that in someone else than if you've never experienced it to begin with. And so I find that people who never had relationships then got into the first one, and then that's the one they ended up with. Sometimes it may not work out because they don't have a reference point or experience, as opposed to if their partner is coming from having several other relationships. So for me, the dating is also part of learning. And in learning, you know what you don't want. And the older you are, you should be quicker to say what you don't want and move on from what you don't want. Don't stay in a place that's not working or not good for you. It's not healthy. And since we're not talking about married people, let's stick to that in the context of this singleness.
Okay. And so in line with even like when you are single and you're saying that you should so you're putting singleness with being alone, or you're saying singleness and you want to partner in the
Singleness
sense of
and you want to partner.
You want to be
you want to be in
married.
you want to be
Okay, you want to be
married,
in
or
a
you want to be
relationship,
in
yeah.
a relationship. Yeah. Don't convince yourself that it's okay to be single. If you want to be in a relationship, start confessing relationship and start going out there actively to try and see if, yeah. And then I think another big one is prayer.
Okay.
I think we also don't recognize how important it is, and how how God is the source. Everything and everyone else is a resource. And when we pray, God answers. And you'll be surprised that He'll give you not necessarily what you want, but what you need.
Okay. Now that's usually a tough one for most people.
But you'll be surprised that what you need is, what you need is even better than what you
want.
thought you wanted.
Okay.
So it may not be the dark, tall, dark, handsome, whatever this, but it may be the most wonderful, loving, kind, great with kids, generous person who makes you laugh. Yet you thought you wanted this other one that has no laughter, has no joy, has no peace, has no, yeah.
So even we're about to wrap it up, but I wanted to just clarify. Okay, when you're in your 20s, you can even date the people in your classes, and there's so much variety.
The options are
So
there.
as you get older, like you're saying, you should be intentional about taking yourself out to different. Go for the events.
Opportunities.
Create opportunities. So would it be wrong to
Go
say
to
that
church. Go to the events. Yeah.
you have to put in more intention? Because a lot of times people like to say, no, you don't have to. Doesn't mean that you have to put in more work
You
when you're older
do.
and it is okay.
You do.
That's
You
just the
do.
season.
Relationships are work. So is marriage. I don't think there's anything in life that's not work. Even breathing is work. Like, so for me, I think that we need to get off the fact that thinking that that work is bad. In this case, let's say work is good.
Work is
and the
good.
more work we put in, with the help of God, by the grace of God, then it'll bear fruit.
Okay.
Like when you plant the seed, imagine it will bear fruit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in closing, number one, make yourself have the intention and don't be too faced. Be clear about what you want.
Right.
Number two, make yourself available. Don't sit in your apartment hoping that Prince Charming
door
will
will
come in a horse and knock and say, I
and
have come for you. So you
I'm
have
here.
to put
Yeah.
yourself out there both emotionally and physically.
Yes.
And what was the third one? Sorry.
There were many, but okay. Speak life.
Speak life. Be
Right.
very careful about the words that you say.
Yes.
You say, so speak life to yourself.
Right.
So I think that's all for me. I don't know if you have something to say in closing before we bring the episode
Because
to
I'm
an
an
end.
image consultant, I must always say, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you do good. And if you do good, there's nothing you cannot change, not even the world. So make sure you look good always.
Again, thank you so much for tuning in. We feel so blessed that we're able to talk about a topic like dating, which is very relevant and necessary in today's society. Please, there'll be more episodes. Please tune in. Please subscribe. Just join us. We'll have more interesting things to talk about that will help ignite you to move towards your purpose and your dreams for the future.